Okay, so all I have here is 3 sheets, 3 very thin pieces of copper. You would obviously do this in silver or mixed metal. And so first thing we're going to need is we're going to need to secure this. The easiest thing to do, because we don't have proper vices at school, and quite frankly I don't have enough proper vices in my studio, so what I use for my students when I teach at home are these little C-clamps, and you have the binding wire on there, and get this close to the thickness of whatever cable you're using, just so that you're not hooking, tightening it up. I'm pulling it down and tightening up the bottom, and I don't want too much underneath. Now, first couple of twists don't really connect anyways. Like, make sure these are tight and all 3 of them are bound in there. So it's just like a normal braid, only you have to flip each section. So imagine you're braiding 3 strands of hair. Normally this one would come to the middle and this one would come there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this to the middle. But watch what I'm doing is I'm actually putting a twist in it right here. And then I squeeze it over. And then this one comes here. This one on the outside again. I'm going to flip it over and I'm twisting it down. Then this one in the middle. It's easier to do this with pliers. Twist it, give it a little squeeze, keeps it crisp. I'm going to grab it and watch what I do with my hands. I'm holding the bottom one so that supports it, and then I actually turn it over. So my hand is flipping positions. And then I take the outside one and grab the bottom one, flip it over. So your hand ends up being upside down. Make sure your pliers don't have lots of marks on the inside because it will scar the metal. So I grab it, hold it in tight, flip it over. Now, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that this line here always lines up parallel to this one. Grab it, the bottom, flip it over itself, and then make it parallel to this side. Position it so you know what you're doing. Grab the bottom one and then the top one. Hold the bottom one for support. Flip it over. So this is a flat braid. You can see how it's producing a really neat little flat thing. Most of the time we do these, we do them in white, yellow, and red gold. Sometimes we'll do them in gold and silver. The contrast is nice. You may do them in silver and copper if you want. So once this is done, you will take the braid out of the clamp, assuming that I have enough of the right length. You can either run it through the rolling mill, or preferably rolling it out will loosen it a little bit. What we want to do is I'm going to do a little bit more. We want it to compress. We don't want it to stretch. So over, parallel. Hold on to it, flip it over, make it parallel. This is where it's very important to make it even. And you'll see how short my wires are. That's because for the sample I didn't want to get outside of the viewing screen, but also for a sample I don't need enough, but you need more. After you get to this length, you're going to want to carefully move this back to be held in the vise. Now the other thing you should do is you should actually have somewhere in the studio or in your personal stuff, as a general rule, it's a good idea to keep little pieces of leather, if I can find mine, a little piece of leather like this, so that when you are working, I don't want the vise to scar this. Make sure that up is always up. They're actually slightly different. So because I want to hold this piece without scarring it, I'm going to put the leather there. Doesn't matter in the first section because the first section is a write-off anyways. You're going to cut it off. And I'm just going to C-clamp it, hold it tight, and then continue to work. If it gets too long, what will end up happening is my braid will actually start to loosen up, and the amount of movement here causes it to be difficult to do. You guys will do this tomorrow at the big table. Make sure that you're standing over your work. So once you've done your entire 4 inches, and you're starting with longer than that, so 6-inch pieces of wire for these little straps. And these started off as, I think they were 1.5 millimeter round wire that I just ran through the rolling mill. As you get into this shorter side, it's actually difficult to get a good even twist as the pieces get shorter as well. So you're probably only going to use the middle section of this braid. Oops. Like so. Once you've done the whole thing, which yours will be longer, obviously, I'm going to take the steel off of there. It's pretty good. It's fairly even. But, you know, I've done this more than once. I don't expect your braids to be perfect. What I want to do is I actually just want to compress it. And that just makes it even this way. Once I have done that, before I put it on my ring, I actually want to also, with a hammer, small ball peen hammer, careful that you don't ruin the edge there. I just want to hammer the edge. The other thing you can do is once you've bent it round into a ring and you've done a closed sample, you can put the block back on it and hammer it parallel again. It's important that it's parallel so that the side band when it goes on is parallel. Okay, so that's a flat braid. Requires 3 pieces rolled flat.